Meteorologist Joe Bastardi, your blank industries. Let me get the official beginning on here. There has to be the beginning. In the beginning of this snow season, we're forecasting a lot of snow, and it was almost sounds scriptural there. In the beginning, there was a forecast for snow. Forecast a lot of snow through the Great Lakes into the central and northern plains and into the Appalachians. And what was interesting about this season, and I'm going to get into it in just a moment, is that the core of that snow wound up south and east of that exclusively because of the month of February in the southern areas down in Texas. And it was a case of two storms down there in Texas into Louisiana. They did the dirty work in the month of February, of course. Now, in the northern part of the United States, this is almost like the anti-La Nina. What happened here, and in our forecast, and let me explain this, is that we forecasted the cold to extend through here like this. And you say, well, wait a minute, that's exactly opposite of what happened. And you'd be right on that. What happened is that you had a lot of blocking that developed here, and it forced a split in this, where one piece of the jet went to the south, the other stayed up to the north, and the warmth extended back through where you saw it this particular season. So there was an error with that, but we saw that 30-day period in February really go absolutely bonkers with the La Nina signal. This was the 500 millibar anomalies. Okay, you get the trough over Alaska. We know when we get the trough over Alaska, there's going to be a lot of mild air in the United States. But there's that. And what usually happens is it extends southeastward into the central part of the country in the La Nina season, and that shows you you cannot just take the average. And in fact, when I went back and looked at this, it was a blend of the last three La Ninas because 2012 was very, very warm. And it was sort of, this season was sort of like a shadow of 2012 because you saw some of the other cold La Nina analogs that we had also get in there. And so when we look at what happened with temperatures, uh, like I said, that's opposite of the La Nina signal overall. Now, this is December through January, and then of course February came, and that is the ideal La Nina signal, where the cold, except it was extreme. Why was it so extreme? Because you got a lot of blocking going on, so it finally forced the core of the cold air, instead of splitting it, it forced it all into the central part of the country. Now, if you were watching our videos and our statements from mid-January, say, look out, this is going to happen. So, the thing is, when you make a long-range winter forecast, you have to be able to adjust as things come along 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance. That's what we try to do for you. But the snow actually turned out pretty darn good. You see, we went back to where we were in March. Now it's mid-April into mid-May. We're going back to where we were in February, except the spring version of it. And that's why we're seeing some extra snow in the Rockies, northern plains, even the interior Northeast. Now, what I did here was, and this is an approximation. The areas in blue were above normal snowfall. In deep blue, they were much above normal, more than twice the normal. Now, keep in mind, in the South, it doesn't take much snow to be twice above normal. Dallas only averages about 2 inches of snow a year. For instance, Austin 0.8, and but you see all across the northern plains and on into Wisconsin and Michigan, and even further east than what we had. It's almost like what we had was displaced a little bit southeast, largely because of a couple of big storms. If you noticed, our last winter forecast pushed the normal amounts of snow into the mid-Atlantic states, and that wound up very, very close in there, although a little bit southeast. You saw New York City with that. Much of Canada was below normal snowfall. You can see we had a week in the Pacific Northwest where things went absolutely wild there, and really Portland and Seattle tilted the snow toward being well above normal. The Rockies were back and forth, and of course, once you get to the south, in Florida, can't really come up with a normal snowfall is like what in Tallahassee 0.05. because it has snowed in Tallahassee before. It's even snowed into Miami. All right. I'm sure they didn't put salt on the street though. All right. So you can see where that was, and so there's our winter review. Now there is still snow to be had. We're getting a snowstorm up here, and we've had some snow. There still may be enough snow here to, like, Bismarck was 25%, but you get down to Rapid City's almost 200% over here. So you see that sharp gradation there, and that was because of the block. Okay, gotta make sure I've got everything covered over here. All right, it's just like a snowstorm. You have to have everything covered. So that's what we had. Again, when we look back at the start of the season, the area we had with above normal snowfall was more like this in here. I think we extended into the west, if my memory serves me correct. And it basically was a southeast shift. A lot of this was because of two major storms. Well, we had two storms in a row, back to back in February, but in the Austin, Texas area, had two snowstorms this year and an ice storm. So, and what was a shame, in my opinion, was that, and I'm going to say this, there could have been a lot of, if people had woken up to that, and if you were following us, we were talking about that. We started talking about that 15 to 20 days away when we saw what was going on with where this blocking was going to go and some of the other stuff that was going on. There could have been preparation in the Southern Plains where, people could have, um, I mean, you could have sold or at least rented snow fighting equipment down there, but you had to be awake for that. You had to be out there in front of it. Even 5 days in advance, you would have been in front of it. Now, it's just me looking at things over here. The other thing I wanted to bring up is in the Northern Plains, it's been a back and forth winter. There've been, it's, there'll be 2, 3 weeks where it started early, everything started going, and then it backed off, and then it came back, and then it came back off, and came back on. And when you see that, it means there is a war going on in the atmosphere for control. Okay, and that leads to the kind of challenging patterns. So we had some interesting things going on. Can't wait to get back. Already looking at next year. Okay, already looking at next year and trying to figure out if that block is going to show up. Yeah, I'll tell you what. There's going to be a block every year now because it's warmer than normal in the Arctic, and blocking loves to develop. And the what we call the Madden-Julian oscillation is more active than normal because of the variances in sea surface temperatures in the Pacific and Indian Ocean. So every year, some kind of blocking is going to try to develop, but the question is, where does it develop? All right. For instance, if it develops over Scandinavia, it usually leads to a positive Arctic oscillation, which wraps the vortex up right over the Arctic, and that leads to the warmer winters. If you get it to develop over Greenland and try to come back, that leads to colder winters. This year it was sort of in between there. It's a little bit further south. It was far enough north to create two big snowstorms on the eastern seaboard, but a little bit too far south for the constant cold to be drilling into the country. So a lot of interesting things. When you look at these La Ninas, it's like having a family of 15 kids or something, and they all may have the same parents, but not all the kids act the same. Okay, I don't know if that's good or not. So let me try to sign off here again because this is what happens. I start remembering things I wanted to say to you before. It certainly is a pleasure serving you. I can't tell you how much I cherish your loyalty and the chance to get to talk to you. And I'll tell you what we should do is before the season, we should do some kind of big thing where we can, get questions and all that stuff. So that's something to consider for next year. Because Lord knows I like answering questions, even if some of them I have to say I don't know. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.